It's like when I was starting thinking about how to apply my competencies in ParAqua, and the only things that comes into my mind is how can I integrate my competencies in culture collection with this nice action. So here is my personal brainstorm about how to integrate our competencies. I'm writing like very weird questions that it makes no sense. So like my general questions is in your opinion, how many zoosporic parasites are cultivable, and how many are currently in culture collection and available, for example, for researches and mesocosma and industries, for example. So I browsed a little on some catalog, but very fast about the global catalog of microorganisms, for example, that has 150 collection. And it is very difficult in this catalog to find information about the isolation source and hosts. For example, from the facilities I've shown you before, just the global catalog, I have a way to browse for the isolation substrate, for example. And I've browsed for water, fresh water, not marine, and there are 800 fungal species available in culture collection, but they do not say anything else about taxonomy, because you should browse in this catalog then just for genus or species name. But I found this list, for example, it says here that there are not from freshwater, but in all the catalogs listed in the global catalog of microorganisms, just 100 Chytridiomycota, that I don't know if it's a big number or a small number. There is nothing there on the species because you should browse for taxonomy. And for example, I've made a search on, I was hoping that Milos was here on how to pronounce Batrachochidrium dendrobatis, BD. Yeah. That is very common. It is causing a lot of problem with the conservation of amphibians, but currently there are none of these strains available, even even on MIRI. Even if I found this paper that this strain, this species can be cultivated in pure culture. And I don't know if methods are correct, but currently there are none in these big networks. Perhaps there are some other repositories in which you can browse for these strains. And so this added to my brainstorm so many other questions on how can we interact with these networks and infrastructure? What can we do if we want to do something? And what can we offer of unique? Who can we contact? Perhaps you know someone that is working in this network that is willing to take this assignment on how to integrate zoosporic parasites within these catalogs, and how can we envision some common efforts. I know that in the ParAqua training school in Germany, you were talking about a booklet of methods. So are you planning to have some text done or some method preferred on how to cultivate the zoosporic parasites? That for me, that would be very interested to have as a reference paper in my works. Or can we think about a position paper, a common experiment? I was thinking, well, we can discuss later. So I have some post-its, and for the people online, I can also, I prepare also a Jamboard online, so you can add your sticky notes and ideas. And if you're interested in this,
can you share the link on the chat now, please?
So it's like, this is really my willingness to collaborate with you and to have something done together. And I really want to help and Yes, I was thinking also we were preparing the catalog of zoosporic parasites. Then we can perhaps contact some people in these global repositories and make maybe a common paper on how many of these species are deposited, because they have access to all other metadata that can make the tricks and have this data available. Or as we said with Silke, we can have some experiments on cultivating these microorganisms. So I'm really open to suggestions.
I have a question, Laura, because I mean, when we were thinking about, well, different opportunities, of course, we thought that, promoting the isolation of this parasite can be really something helpful, well, especially for us for experiment purposes, for research, but I guess also, I mean, for people interested to understand a bit better how it works, the dynamic of this contamination, blah, blah. And of course, the big incognita is always whom to reach in this case, because we do not really have direct connection with some collection. And, you know, I mean, having a parasite in a collection, especially if as an obligate parasite, is always a bit tricky. Nobody really likes to, taking care of different, host and parasite at the same, I mean, and so I was thinking about the MIRI that you presented today. I mean, is a European infrastructure, and I mean, given the experience with other European infrastructure that are super helpful in this action, and they really bring expertise and solution. I was thinking, to your knowledge, it is possible to reach them and to have a dialogue with them. I mean, to really have a sort of discussion with the expert and people that also has the capacity to implement something like that.
Yes, I have a direct contact with Adriana Chiarelli, that she's working in the Institute Pasteur, and she is working on freshwater. She was working on freshwater before joining the Institute Pasteur, so we can try to reach her, and through her we can have some suggestions on who to contact, because she's very nice and young, but perhaps some other people have some better connection with this network. No. No, but we can get in touch with that, because it can be also good, to organize one, I don't know how we can name it, like a joint experience, inviting some members of MIRI that are willing to collaborate, and perhaps thinking about an online event in which we can exchange ideas, we can present ourselves, because this is very unique, what we have here. I don't think, well, perhaps the culture collection at the Roscoff can have some skills on that.
Yeah, and I know they have a lot of cryopreserved strains, if I'm not wrong. But yes, Silke also has the raised hand. Maybe you want to add something, Silke?
Just about this, this issue of culture collection and obligate parasites, and so I think this is a bit the first kind of the question is, of course, for the facultative parasites, it is a bit easier to keep them in culture, because as you said, Laura, one can have it on medium, and then it's like a normal fungal strain, and I think that is not problematic. But I think the most problematic is this kind of obligate parasites, where we don't have that solution, where we currently, at least like now, everybody's just doing it in his lab, tries to maintain it. And I think this is something for a culture collection which nobody might actually really want to do. I know that, as you mentioned, Serena, there I think in the SAMS collection there has been some talk about that they also have obligate parasites in culture, but I don't know in what stage. So there has been some effort on cryopreservation protocol, but not a lot, at least not for fungal zoosporic parasites. I am not aware how the method is developed or is existing for other groups of zoosporic parasites, like obligate ones. At least I know only of one paper where they have published a cryopreservation protocol. That's by Rat Mendes et al. I can put the reference in the chat also. I think this might actually, like, when talking with people from culture collections, I think one should try to find maybe this kind of, like, if we can offer that there is a cryopreservation protocol and that those can be stored, that might probably be already better received. One other just practical solution is, so many of those zoosporic parasites, they form resting stages. And Alena also mentioned that resting stages, here there is also not a lot of research done on if we can preserve those kind of resting stages, and if we know how to germinate them back again. This might be a similar kind of like way of low maintenance preservation. If we know, if we can, I just can have a very, very personal, so we just with a student project, we did one thing about that, and we kind of managed with one system to germinate resting spores, and the trigger was temperature. So just putting maybe resting stages at a low temperature, and then giving them an increase in temperature might work. But this demands kind of like from, I think, from the research side and kind of method of like protocol development, that they can be really assured, like, yes, this works. And then you can deliver that to a culture collection, and you can deliver the protocol, say, yes, this is how it has to be preserved, and this is how you can revive it, just as a like what kind of solutions or what kind of options there might be for keeping those obligate parasites in culture.
But because in cultural collection there are also researchers, so it's not that far that you can find something willing to take some part of research and development in preservation methods. I am thinking about in Miri. When I went to Brussels, I've met people there that were managing a cyanobacteria collection, and they had this huge problem with the cryopreservation, and they needed to develop a methods. So if we join the effort and try to find a method that works for both, this can also be a solution. Alex, then I have another question.
I really like the idea actually of having zoospores that you germinate, but in terms of having protocols that you want to collect or provide for culture collections and anybody else who wants to do this work, I guess what you need is something that is really broadly applicable. So if we know that one species germinates at temperature X, how broadly applicable do we think this would be? Or would we just say, well, this is one issue that you can try, but we don't really know for the rest? I'm wondering how general a recommendation we can actually make in terms of protocols, if we want to go down a road of providing some kind of manual. Yeah, for diatoms or whatever, they say, well, use F/2 and that's it. Help yourself. But I'm wondering whether we're at the same stage already. No, we are not, are we?
Is there someone here that has done cryopreservation of microalgae? In case, well, one thing that I can try is to find back the contact of this person that was working on cyanobacteria, give you the protocol that she was using, and see for us, like, for example, if in your culture this is working. Then we can make, well, on the side, we can also make some very general biographical search on methods and for what group perhaps they can work or not, the different methods. I don't know. I don't think it is much. And of course, we are providing, if I understood correctly, for ParAqua, some booklets of methods based on the experience of participants. So perhaps in these 2 years, we can make some trial and errors. I'm sure there will be a lot.
Maybe it would be useful then to actually go and ask all those people that we know are involved in these things.
Yes.
And try and find out what people do. Maybe they are communality. Maybe everybody does the same thing. I have no idea. But maybe this kind of like a little meta-analysis might be useful. It's a bit too big a term for that, probably, but
something that I always think when I talk with these people. I know some people that do some cryopreservation for several species of microalgae. The problem here is not how you do the cryopreservation, but if it really works and if it works every time. As I have seen until now, most of the species of microalgae, they are not going to survive the cryopreservation any way you try it. Cyanobacteria, it's a case that they are more similar to bacteria than to microalgae, eukaryotic macroalgae. So it's a little bit easier to tackle that part. You have some specific macroalgae that can grow after you cryopreserve them, like chlorella. Some chlorella can do that. Tetracellular, because it has a lot of resistance and you can do some preservation of it. But really, most of these species are not going to survive after you do that. Even the companies that are expert in doing that, like in France, we have I never know how to say the name of the institute. Institute of France Marine Science, or the CCAP. That's I think the biggest future collection of microalgae. They do the cryopreservation of these trains, but they don't have it surviving. They don't have it growing after, really. Most of them don't grow. They just have it to cryopreserve the genes of these species, really, of these strains.
Is it about media and the protocol that you use? I don't know. I have one project for cryopreservation of oyster larvae. Never thought until today about algae. So I can tell that I will talk to people that are experts for cryopreservation in aquaculture. Yeah. Because when we got larvae after oyster larvae after cryopreservation, I am sure that it is possible. But then how to get this isotonic media protocol, what to use, I don't know. Do you have some protocols? Or you are just trying to...
No, I'm trying to see ways here because
Okay.
I use artificial media that can be both
Which
synthetic
artificial media
no.
for farming or what? For
No, like sometimes for very difficult like marine strains, for pure culture I use like the algae, the microalgae, like meshed and sterilized and agarized, and I do the media with that. But I don't know if this is applicable to.
So if you want to know the methods of macroalgae cryopreservation, we can send an email. I can do that and see if I get a response.
Yeah.
Because as a coast, we can do contacts with other institutes, and the CCAP is a big institute, and they are doing courses that tackle the part of cryopreservation in buildings. So I think it's not a problem. We should talk with them.
They can send protocols so we can then discuss to people that know this for other things in aquaculture.
Yes, of course.
Do you think that it is worth the effort to have like a small working group on this, or do you think this is too much to do? Silke, can you? I cannot copy paste, and I wanted to put it in the journal.
For me, it would be a dream to have a really well done protocol on cryopreservation of microalgae. Don't really know one yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also for the research field, it would be a good step forward because one of the things I wanted to do in my PhD is actually look at co-evolution, and then you would like to stop the evolution of the one and let the other one evolve further. So anything like that would also, in terms of basic research, really open some doors.
How much specialistic these are? Because I was also thinking that I know nothing. So are there most generalists on the same group of algae, or their host parasites? The species should be that one to preserve, to co-culture the chytrids. Because, for example, if you find a protocol for an algae that can sustain the cryopreservation, then you can try to infect this algae and have a protocol on this.
Yeah, I'm looking a little bit at Silke here because she's clearly more the expert. But in the worst case, it could even be that if you don't preserve the host at the same time, it doesn't, that it won't be able to infect the host in the future. But you also get generalists, right?
Sorry, I was occupied with a sticky note, but it's about host specificity. If they are more generalists or specialists, so far, based on so far knowledge and experience, I would say, but it's also biased because, it seems to be that there are more specialists than generalists.
Serena?
But again, I think it also depends on the habitat where you are and where you are collecting your parasites, as with 10.Laura and Caio also, like when you are going more to, we are very focused on pelagic habitats with phytoplankton blooms and this kind of very like this type of interactions, which seems to promote more host-specific parasites and more obligate parasites. We have been looking in lakes and we have been isolating parasites. And when I actually got one facultative parasite, which was generalist, but when you look into the metabarcoding data, you actually do not really see them in the pelagic environment popping up, so meaning that they might have other habitats. So again, when you go to other type of habitats, that might change, you might do have. So I think at the moment we can just not answer that question yet. But another, maybe one thing that I've been talking about cryopreservation and maybe like looking, maybe going actually one step back again. Maybe actually we can convince culture collections of keeping hosts parasite co-culture in the collection. And I'm just thinking about this because, I mean, it depends of course on how many systems the culture collection needs, like how it scales up. But thinking about yeah, Alena, you also have been cultivating these like things for a long time, and I have now like systems that are for 7 years in culture, and it takes now a minimum kind of like of maybe, well, half an hour, 1 hour a week to somehow kind of maintain them.
Collection. It is so much for a culture collection, half an hour a week. It is
too much.
Too much.
Okay, yes, then we can forget it.
Perhaps we can interact with culture collections that because we're thinking about collection that hosts the fungi, and perhaps we should interact with collection that hosts microalgae. Yeah. So be you a little bit, Serena.
Yeah, well, I'm also kind of really thinking and but if we, I mean, this morning you mentioned that the big problem about cryopreservation is water content of cells, and this can be something quite tricky. And we are talking about obligate parasites with the need of having a host parasite system. But I mean, actually, chytrids do have a sort of self-standing stage, which is the zoospore, which are also quite poor in water. So I'm wondering if there is a way of exploring also this kind of solution. So having a sort of library of cryopreserved zoospores for different species, and I have no idea if this is something that can work, or if the coevolution of the host and parasite can be really something that can make the difference. And so when we want to infect with some cryopreserved zoospores, some new host, let's say, it will not work at all. But yeah, again, I'm wondering if this is something that maybe Silke, you're laughing, it's crazy.
And about this stage of survival, are those melanized or not?
Melanized.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what you said, Laura? I didn't understand it.
No, is the survival stage spores? Are there
the resting spores?
are they melanized or not? Not.
Not
Not for the people.
Mostly not. There are maybe some, but like some species have some kind of melanized spore, but very few, commonly not.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what are the objectives that we can set? No, I'm not showing my screen. I was trying to take notes on what we said. Is there someone else that wants to add something to this? Like even the craziest idea, I think are like we are on the edge of what is
we will have a conference, right? Within ParAqua, there will be a conference coming up, and there could be a session on these topics.
Okay, so isolation, maybe inviting representatives like Anna and Gabriel said that work with this, that can be invited, also Miri representative.
But I mean, sorry for jumping
Yes.
like this, but what I want to say is that, I mean, there is definitely room also for creating sort of working groups and dedicated task force. I mean, as we did with Andrea and Ilaria for the data set. So of course, the idea is that the action can grow, can focus also more or less attention and effort or some topic that can be of interest. And definitely the contribution to culture collection is one of them, has the database or the papers or other tasks that we are working on. So it is definitely something that we can consider to do.
Okay.
And yeah, again, as we were mentioning, I mean, we were talking about designing experiment and these kind of things. And this is definitely something that can be a super good topic also for STSM, if you want to test, for example, how resting stage can be viable for a long time at some temperature or these kind of things. Of course, it's definitely something that can be interesting to investigate.
Yeah. Yeah, this is when is this conference coming up?
Normally it's the next grant period.
Okay. So perhaps
it doesn't need to be necessary, as I say, a session at the conference. Can be before, you see what I mean? Can be some work also that we decide to do before.
Yes, I was thinking about perhaps making a mailing list and have some special session, I don't know, special meeting, online meetings on this, and try to organize better what should be done, like with reference search, with the experimental procedures, and who to contact in this method. And, yes, maybe we like. I know there's some work going on in P1, so let's say starting from May. I don't know if you have some big sampling campaigns coming up, or we should go later in September. Do you think that in May you can be free to have some discussion on this? Ah, yes, a survey coming. A question. Okay, so I will send an email and asking for your interest in contributing to this topic. And there is a message on the chat.
Yes, actually, if you can get these protocols for cryopreservation that are used on send me what you use. We have first week of May this cryopreservation work for the project with oysters. So when these Hungarian colleagues will be there, I can ask and we can try something.
Okay. So we have
It all depends also on equipment. They have different equipment and different chemicals that could be used. So I don't know.
Now this can be also fun, no? Like to try to since we were talking before that we have so many expertise here that are a potential that we should capitalize from. So having people that working on microalgae, people working on fungi, people working on anything else, and try to see if we can merge these competencies to find new alternatives and new ways to think. Alina was, now it comes to my mind that you, Alina, were presenting before that some stages are unknown where these parasites can survive. So we can sediments.
Yeah.
We can think about different things that we can try. And so also with short-term mission, we can have students or a researcher that can, of course, help people that have this culture of zoosporic parasites, so that not all the work should rely on Silke and shoulders, of course.
I'm not having any cultures at the moment,
No.
so I'm having an easy life.
You will be, you will have.
So if somebody wants to come to Finland to do some experiments on resting state germination for an STSM, welcome. I have some cultures to try out.
We should try it with lights and see if the light rate that you have in Finland is affecting the kids. Okay, so that's up for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.